Hello, and welcome to the first paycheck of 2026. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Justin. I make regular videos where I go through some aspect of my budgeting process. This video is going to be allocating my first paycheck of January and the first paycheck of 2026. I also make videos where I go through my month closing, like looking at all the spending I've done over the last month. I also do year-end closeouts as well. So $19.31.55 is the money that I got for my most recent paycheck, and we'll go ahead and start allocating it out. So this week I finalized my lease for my new apartment. In a previous video, I talked about making a decision between two different apartments. One was a little cheaper than what I'm currently paying, and the other was a little bit more cheaper than the cheaper apartment. I decided to go with the not so cheap option for a couple reasons. One, the layout is identical to, maybe not identical, but very similar to the layout of the apartment that I have. In fact, I think it's the same builder, because this living space, which is what you see behind me in all my videos, is going to look pretty much identical, with the exception of I won't have a sliding glass door to go into the backyard. I'll have a regular traditional door. But for all intents and purposes, what you'll see will look identical. The main reason I chose that one, knowing that it wasn't the cheapest option for me, was because of the private backyard. I value my dog's comfort more than my comfort. And so I'm okay paying slightly higher than what I could get cheaper to know that he has a private backyard to go hang out in when he wants. If I don't have the time to go take a walk with him, but he needs to go outside, I can just open the door, let him go, do his thing, and he can come and go as he wants. To me, I value that much more than, saving $500 with no backyard and either having to take more walks with him or take the same amount of walks, but no intermediate walks. So that's why I chose it. I take ownership of the apartment this Friday, so the 16th of January. Ideally, normally I wouldn't have taken ownership that quickly or that soon, especially since my current lease doesn't expire until the 11th of February. So I'm basically carrying two apartments for a couple weeks, which obviously is more money than it would have been otherwise. But the property had a 2-month free promotion if I moved in by the end of January. The unit that I selected, if I did a move-in date of the 30th of January, which is the last weekday of January, it would have been $100 to $150 more expensive a month in base rent than if I chose this Friday, the 16th. And so I elected to go with the earlier move-in date, knowing that I set aside enough money to cover both of them. I'm going to be fine regardless. So private backyard was important to me. Getting the 2-month free was important to me. And now I've basically got, almost 3 weeks to prepare for moving, which means I can take my time packing things up. and moving things over, and I'm not rushed. So in a couple weeks, I will kind of move everything from where I'm at to my new place, and we'll go from there. With that said, I have forecasted my best guess on what I think my last rent payment will be for my current apartment with the prorated February amount. That amount, what I'm estimating it to be, is about $960, a little over $960, which conveniently enough is how much money I set aside in from each paycheck to go towards my next month's rent. So for those who aren't aware, my last month's rent for where I currently live is going to be funded through my rent category. My first month's rent and all of my deposits and everything is going to be funded from my moving fees. So my move-in fees for my new apartment is just over $2,100. That includes my first month's rent, my pet deposit, my security deposit, and basically everything involved with the first month's rent amount. So as you can see, I have $2,392. That is enough money to cover that with a couple hundred extra left over that I'm going to use to rent a moving truck. So I'm happy with the amount of money that I set aside for moving, which means I'm going to go into my phone actually right now as I'm thinking about it. And I am going to mark as completed my moving expenses goal. My goal was $3,000. I don't need $3,000. I have more than enough set aside already. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to mark the goal complete. So I already have one goal completed in 2026. Because the 960, a little over 960 is an estimate. And to me, I think it's a little on the high side of an estimate. I'm going to round up and I'm going to, instead of doing 960, I'm just going to put 1,000. That's not where I want that. I need it up here. So I'm going to put 1,000 in there. So I have the money in my moving expense to pay my first month's rent for my new place. I now have enough money, or what I'm 99% sure is enough money to cover my final rent payment of my current place for February. So now I'm going to do some of my every paycheck things. There are items that I set aside money every paycheck. So we'll go ahead and take care of that. I don't need to take care of rent. That's already done for January. Household consumables, I always put 25 in. With cleaning, I'm fairly certain this is more than enough money to cover cleaning and any other consumables on need. So I'm not concerned with not having enough money there. Normally, I set aside $50 every paycheck for dog food, but the last couple months, I have kind of upped the amount of food I give him. And so the food that I buy doesn't go as long as it used to. And there are times when I have to purchase dog food before I fully get enough money in this in this item, and then I have kind of an overspending to take care of. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this item from being in every paycheck item to funding it once a month for what I know my dog food costs, and I will fund it the next paycheck after I purchase my dog food. That way it's ready for the next time. Usually costs a little under $90. So we'll put $90 in there. So dog food is taken care of. I also normally put $50 in for dining out and $50 in for discretionary. So we'll put $50 in for dining out. For discretionary, I'm going to do this. I'm going to put $50 because I don't want to put more than that. And then I'm going to cover this with some leftover groceries money. That overspending, I've always wanted a cart, like a foldable cart, to make it easier to bring in groceries because I grocery shop for the full month, and so I buy a lot of groceries all at once. And it takes me on average 5 to 6 trips to go from the car to the apartment. And it's not a long walk, but it's not a short walk by any means. And so this past weekend, I went to Dick's Sporting Goods and I got a foldable cart, and it took me 2 trips to get everything instead of 5. So definitely worth it. That's what that overspending was. I didn't allocate money to do that. It was just kind of a thing that I wanted, knowing that I was going to have to fund it this paycheck. So we are all good there. I also am going to need gas. So I will fund $50 in gas. I'll probably get that. I'll probably need to do that this weekend. So that leaves me with the devil's number of 666.55. Now I can tell you right off the bat. Actually, what's underfunded? Oh, I'm just gonna snooze that. Okay, so I can tell you right off the bat that this amount of money is not going to cover all of my February bills like normally my first month's paycheck can cover. So we're just gonna make it go as far as we can. We'll start from the top. We'll do my 4 walls. I'm not gonna fund groceries. I don't need to fund rent. My next paycheck is, when is it? 27th, 28th, somewhere in there. So we'll fund those. I will fund that. Let's see what we have here. Yep, we'll fund all of those. Subscriptions, I don't think I'm going to be able to cover all of them. So I'm not going to renew my Fubo TV. For one, football is basically over. For the most part, the games are on local TV, I can get with an antenna. With the exception of I'll need to figure out how to watch the Super Bowl because Fubo TV doesn't have NBC because of a dispute with the carrier. So for for February get a Peacock subscription because I'm pretty sure Peacock has NBC. Or I'll try to figure out to get my antenna to work to get NBC, but currently it doesn't get NBC for some reason. I also I need to make a decision on if I'm going to keep my Ring subscription. So the place that I'm moving into has a $165 technology fee every month. Now, my technology fee where I currently live is $50, so it's $100 more. But the technology fee where I'm moving to covers the smart home thermostat, alarm system, keyless entry, which are the three things that my current property uses that tech fee for. But the reason it's a little bit more is because I also get like a base package of cable. So more than likely that base cap package of cable will be more than enough for me, which is why I'm deciding to get rid of Fubo. They also have installed kind of a Ring style camera already. So my Ring camera would just be like a second camera. Now, I may still do it just so I have some ownership of the footage and everything instead of the property. But I could potentially get rid of my my Ring subscription as a result. So I'm gonna fund all of those with the intent of canceling Fubo for sure, and maybe canceling Ring. We'll see. I'm gonna cover his shots. So now let's see what items are underfunded that's not rent or groceries. Gas. If I get gas this month, I probably won't need gas next month, so we're fine there. And then Fubo TV. So I'm happy with that. I am gonna double check to make sure. Here's what I want to do. I want to go through everything real quick because I have $33 left. So we're good with four walls. We're good with transportation. We're good with short term. We're good with subscriptions. We're good with pet stuff. For now, we might come back and put this money in pet holding. We're good with all of this. Yeah, so we're in a pretty good spot for February. For this 3303, I have a decision to make. I could put this in my pet emergency which is going to be my next savings goal to get that to 3,000. I could put it in discretionary and use it as I need. I could put it in moving to give me a little bit more moving. I could put it in rent, just in case for some reason it's higher than I anticipate. Honestly, let me do this. Let me see. So 2392.13 minus 2107. So 2107 is how much I need to give them a check for to move into my new place. So that leaves me with $285. I think a U-Haul for the day will cost probably no more than like 150, maybe a little less than that. So that leaves me about $130 for boxes and tape and stuff, which should be more than enough. So I don't need to put this in moving. So I'm going to put it in, I'm going to put it in here in pet holding. But in January, so that it's available for me to use right now. Because in about a week, I'll have to do some renewals of his pills. Perfect. So that's gonna kind of close out my allocation. It worked out much better than I thought. I forgot when I was going through this in my head that I wasn't going to be renewing my Fubo TV. And so that made it so that I could cover everything, which I'm happy about. So we'll see you in the next video.